From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Microcasting for your city. Talkopolis.
And welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with my idol, Larry Woody. Called him that for, well, my idol, Larry Woody. Speaking of how long that's been, Larry, it's about how long we've been working together in one shape, form, fashion, or other at the Nashville Fairgrounds, and a lot of interesting things going on at the fairgrounds. We have seen the mayor, Nashville Mayor Carl Dean, do his very best to kill it. We saw what became known as the Red Army force a referendum election that I believe went 71% towards the keep it. It's actually an amendment to the Metro Charter that said, do with it what you want to, redevelop it how you want to, but there has to be racing, a fair, or an exposition or a flea market, as we call it, and a state fair held on the property. Other than that, you can do whatever you want to. Well, last night, several new options were rolled out as potential, Larry, and none of them included, as far as I could tell, a state fair, a flea market, or a racetrack.
But other than that, no, I read the story this morning of the coverage. I think our buddy Terrell Davis was at the meeting also, and apparently it was like the dog that didn't bark. It was the subject of racing really apparently didn't come up. It was sort of the story that wasn't there. And it was kind of puzzling because I thought that was sort of the centerpiece of the whole thing. You know, what do we do with the facility, the fairgrounds facility, the 114 acres, and maintain what we've got there, and maybe expand and do some other things, such as you know, your guest on the show a couple of weeks ago were talking about how
Project
you
Nashville
could
Skyline,
keep the racing, the state fair, the flea markets, expo buildings, and that kind of thing, and still build around it and develop it. But apparently that didn't come up.
I didn't sit with any of the folks who I'll be honest, and I'm not trying to stir a pot or anything, but I saw one artist rendering that I think is the one that called for an 8-story office building and 839 dwelling units. Now, folks, trust me, from having worked in local government, that is not going to be 8 units an acre for 100 acres. That's going to be more like 16 units in every acre. That's more like apartments.
And you wonder where the neighborhood, watch people were, the neighborhood community people were, because their concern, as I understood it, was that the track would impact the quality of life in their neighborhood. If they think that the quality of life is going to be impacted, wait till they start putting those high-rise apartments on every square inch out there. But again, Joe, it's the ongoing debate. As you say, we've covered this story for about 40 years now, the fairgrounds, you know, what are they going to do with it and that kind of thing, and it's an ongoing story. I don't know that we've, I don't see any of the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. The same old questions and the same old quibbling that's been going on for 40 years continues to go on.
Yeah. Where I was headed, I don't want to stir the pot. This one artist rendering I saw, Larry, I swear to you, it reminded me more of a prison. I was looking for fences and towers.
Some razor wire.
Yeah, I mean, it really was.
I know it. It's, as I say, the city spent a fortune on evaluating that property. If we just had the money that we spent on the studies that's been done with it, we could.
If governments would take the money they spend on studies to study the study to study the study to figure out what we need to do, we could do something.
Just mind-boggling how much money has been wasted out there on studies and nothing to show for it. You know, if they get commission one of these expensive studies and you have something to show for it, great. But the city has been commissioning studies about what to do with the fairgrounds for 40 years, and nobody still knows what to do with it.
Well, here's my editorial comment: they are going to sit there and do a study after study after study until somebody hands them a study that says what they want.
Till they get the answer they want.
Yeah. It's really, Larry, very simple. Been that way forever.
bottom line is racing will continue this coming season, 2013, and I think the way I understand it, Tony Formosa also has an option for 2014. Is that correct?
Haven't seen that in writing.
This year
but
for
yeah.
sure. Next year possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe not confirmed. And then after that, it's just kind of a void out there. We don't know for sure what's going to happen after that.
If this is their idea and they're trying to push this and hope to do something in a couple of years, like I said, I have not seen the contract itself. Yeah. It may call for a year extension, and probably needs to be given that year extension. I mean, the ill will that comes up, I'm going to go ahead and say this, the ill will that comes up when it's time to see who needs to run the place is one of the things that's killing it. Now, it has been several years ago, everybody, and I told them when it happened, the Red Army came out, they saved the fairgrounds, they saved the racetrack, everybody was happy, and I told them before the vote, when you win this tonight, within 2 weeks, you'll be eating each other's young. Yep. And guess what happened?
Kind of like
nobody gets along.
Some of those third world dictators be overthrown and they're replaced by another dictator.
Yeah.
Not that Tony Formosa is a dictator. I'm just saying that there's these constant management problems have plagued it forever, and it's not really their fault. Like Tony Formosa said before, there's a limit, and Gary Baker said 25 years ago, there's a limit to what you can do with this property if they only give you short-term leases. You can't go out and spend $10 million on improvements if you don't know that you're going to have the track next year.
Yeah.
So, Gary Baker tried to tell them that 30 years ago, and people today are still trying to tell them that. It's just, like I say, I'm not hesitate to believe in conspiracy theories, but I really believe there's an effort there underway just to kind of choke it to death, slowly suffocate it to death.
Well, there is a grassy knoll on the property.
Yeah, and apparently it's working, because the more disorganized it is, and it is disorganized, the less chance it ever has of succeeding. And so I'm just not, I wish I were more positive about the future, but I'm not. I'm just not sure how much longer it can survive. I'm
going to scare a few people when I say this, because I know, and Gary Baker would shoot me if he heard me say this, but to an extent, I long for the days of the Mac Smiths, the Ted Vaughns, the Tex Townsends, who had a true passion for the place. For whatever reason, they had a true passion for the place and for seeing it continue. If only we could have gotten them educated. Yeah. And if we could have got those people that you mentioned, Joe and Gary Baker, on the same page and they could have worked together. If they relented just a little, I think Gary Baker had some great plans, and I think it could survive, and I think, frankly, might even got a cup race at some point. And that had taken a lot of improvements, expansion, cooperation by the city with some new roadways in and out. But I really think Gary, at one time, around 84, 85, might have salvaged a cup race for the fairgrounds. And what a difference, not just the fairgrounds, that whole area of town would have been transformed. Oh, gosh, yes. For the better. Oh yeah, for the better. And, let me tell you, it was not for a lack of trying. Yeah. No, he gave it his best shot, but there was too much head-butting going on, and it never got done, and frankly, I just don't see much promise of much ever getting done. Yeah. If you're wondering just how much headbutting went on, you can go back on Talkopolis and look at our Christmas and New Year's specials, where we had a couple of long shows with Gary and told some stories, and he was there. Yeah, he was there, and he'll help you remember. Yeah. He'll help you understand why. Yeah. It was one of those kind of things. It's like getting Sergeant York to tell you about World War I. He was there. Gary was in the trenches. Great movie, by the way. Terrible analogy. Go ahead. No, actually, I was just sitting there thinking. I actually saw the movie the other night. I had to watch it again. It's a great movie. Gary was Sergeant York. Well, he's tall. Yeah. Maybe he can shoot like the president. Who knows? Tell you what, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Highland Rim. That's the other great racetrack here in the area. That's the one that'll be opening the earliest. Matter of fact, Highland Rim opening on April the 13th, I believe. They've got the media day on the 6th, back it up to the first practice on March 29th, which means they're, 45, 60 days away from getting that first practice in. And also maybe kind of a somber note about one of an old acquaintance. Talk about an old friend of ours that unfortunately is becoming too common, that we wind up talking about them in the past tense. All that and more coming up next on Pit Pass.